Hey everyone, welcome to the Be Bold, Make Waves podcast, a show bringing you inspiring stories of women who are growing and scaling their business. I'm your host, Laura Comark, a website and tech integration specialist who works with online business owners who love their work and not their website. Join me as we have incredible conversations about business, mindset, productivity, and of course, the website and tech behind the business. Let's go ahead and dive in to this week's episode. Hello, and welcome to today's show. For those of you who don't already know me, I'm Laura Comark, website and tech automation specialist for women who love their work, but not their website. I am so excited to introduce you to my guest today, Suzanne Hacker. Suzanne is a former banking executive turned business coach who offers one-on-one coaching to vacation rental owners to help them with new business strategies, design ideas, and marketing. In addition, she conducts workshops and training sessions on various topics, such as pivoting your rental, leveraging the secrets of the algorithm, and 3 easy steps to avoid wasting time without losing guests. She's also launching a training and certification program for vacation rental owners to make their properties suitable for families with autism by making them spectrum friendly. Suzanne, thank you so much for coming on the show today. Can you tell our listeners a little bit more about how you got started in your business?
Oh, I'd love to. Thanks, Laura. And thank you so much, first of all, for even having me on here. I am so honored and it's so fun. So I got started in, I think it was 2018. I lived back in Wisconsin at the time, and we owned a home, and we really wanted to make it into a rental. I thought it would be a long-term rental, but I was getting a little pushback on that. So I'm like, all right, I'll put it on Airbnb. And the reason I did that too was we had actually tried to sell the property first. And when the inspection came back, the buyer then countered for like $60,000 less than what we were asking. And I was like, nope, absolutely not. So we just walked away from, selling it and put it onto Airbnb, and then VRBO as well. And it did really well. And I was just always so eager to learn how I can, make it show up better in search results, and what are my guests going to like? And I really enjoyed the whole hospitality piece of it. So did that actually through a lot of the pandemic, and had a great time with it and made some good money. And then we decided it was time to move to Florida. So we sold everything and moved to Florida, and I couldn't wait to start, in the vacation rental business again. So I was trying to figure out, again, what am I going to do with my life again for, I don't know how many times since leaving banking. And I started my business, which is called Welcoming Wow. I thought I was going to be helping people with interior design for their vacation rentals because I really loved it. And I was taking certification courses for interior design, loved doing it. But then when I actually started to work with people, I always went back to the numbers and more about the algorithm and figuring all that out. So I realized pretty quick that business coaching was more my jam and not interior design. So that's where it got started.
I love that story so much. I remember when Airbnb first came out, my parents actually got very into it when it was more like renting out a room.
Yeah.
Because they had a big house with lots of empty rooms because their kids had all moved out. And my mom at first was very nervous about strangers coming in, and would make sure to friend request them on Facebook and check them out and make sure they were legit people. And then she got to a point, she's like, they're also coming into a stranger's home. And they loved the piece of the hospitality. And she would make banana bread every morning and put out little yogurts and things. And they met some really incredible people who would come back every year and stay with them. And they just loved it. And for her, it was she got to fix up the rooms, and she put the money in to help pay for property taxes.
Oh, right.
She loved it.
One of my clients came to me just because she has 100 plus acres in New York, and the property tax alone, she needs to rent out the cabin that she has on that land. She needs to rent it out just to pay for the property taxes every year, so it can definitely be a good way to do that. Yeah, that's pretty cool. Your parents did that.
So how do you, when you do like one-on-one work, can you talk a little bit about what that looks like?
Well, it looks like a lot like this over Zoom. And all of I don't actually don't have any local clients. So all of my clients are either in Canada or the US. I have actually several in California, around the LA area, and then also Oklahoma, Wisconsin, Tennessee, New Jersey, places like that, that they may be remote hosts or they may actually be hosting right near them. But some of them come to me because they don't even know where to start. And so I help them even with figuring out, the type of property that they're interested in, financing piece, setting up their business, because they have nothing yet. Or others have come to me because, they're a ways into the process, but then they're, just maybe a few weeks away from listing and they don't necessarily know how to list it correctly. Or the last like group of people that come to me are the people who've had their rental for a couple months and they've only gotten one booking out of those couple of months. And they're just kind of like, okay, I don't know what to do to, make this appear better in search results. So when I work with my clients, it's over Zoom, just like how you and I are talking right now. So that's how I meet with most of them.
I love that. What would you say are some tips for our listeners if they're in the rental industry as well and they have a vacation rental? Like when you're saying that you have people who come to you and they're like, I just got on there and I'm not showing up in searches. What are some of like
Yeah.
the top things you start with for clients?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I first start just by even asking them some questions, like I just did earlier today with one was, first of all, do they know how to look in what's called the insights, especially in Airbnb? And do they know how many times they're showing up either on what's called the first page views or actually people looking at their property? Because we can't even begin to figure out what the issue is if we don't even know if they're showing up. Or, because if they're not showing up at all, then we got an issue, a whole different issue as far as things like, they need more description, they need more and better pictures, they need to kind of like put better keywords for, that whole SEO kind of deal. Or maybe they're showing up a lot, but nobody's following through with booking. Well, then they need to improve that listing, a lot in a different way, if you will, so that they can start to appear in the search results and stuff. So, yeah.
That makes so much sense. I know. I remember again, like with my parents listing, they had their first photo was like, I think the tree over the pond. And I was like, Mom,
Yeah.
it's really like the photo that you want for your the first like
It actually
main.
might have been because they say exterior pictures actually do better than interior for your first one.
Oh, good to
Yep.
know.
Yep. And then you don't want your first 5 pictures to be all of the same room. That's another common mistake that I see because, you look at the listing and usually you have, same as a lot of things, you have seconds to grab somebody's attention. As people are scrolling through Airbnb, and especially if they're on their phone, if you think about they really only have one picture, to draw them in so that they would want to scroll through, a few more. And so if that first picture doesn't do the job to draw someone in, then you're definitely going to be out of luck. And then you got to make sure, okay, if the first one does, enough for them to want to scroll through the rest, are you giving them a snapshot of the rental or are they just going to see one room?
Yep.
So
Yeah.
that's my other tip.
We're in the process of looking for a rental for a vacation we're planning with the family. And in looking at the different like Airbnbs and VRBO listings, the place we actually have booked right now, I'm really confused on exactly how many rooms there is and how many beds. Because when I'm trying to like compare, like, okay, well, that bed frame looks different
Yeah.
than this bed frame in this photo. So I'm going to assume that's two separate beds, but then I can see a bed in that looks like through another room, unless that's a mirror, but it looks different. So it's like this complicated thing of trying to figure out what does this place actually look like? And is there going to be enough beds for the 5 of us that are all going?
Sure. Yeah. No, that makes perfect sense. And exactly what you're describing is what we don't want to happen to people. We don't want them to wonder, is there one living room? Is there 2 living rooms? Because this picture looks different from this. Did they just not update all the pictures? Like what's going on? So
Yeah.
I understand where you're coming from.
Clarity. It's so important to
Yeah.
have to have really clear listings. It's the
Sure.
same like with the work I do on websites where you want it to be so clear that when people come to your website, they know that they're in the right place and what you do and they don't get confused because if a
Yeah.
confused mind leaves, we know this.
That's a good point. Yes.
I love that. So, would you say that your business has always looked like it does today, or has it evolved over the last few
I'm
years?
like, it evolves like every couple months still. Yeah, it definitely looks different because I started a little over 2 years ago and I thought it was going to be focused on, interior design for vacation rentals, which is why I named it Welcoming Wow. Because I wanted people to, welcome guests with a wow is where I was coming from. But then it fairly quickly pivoted, and then as I've worked with my business coach, Renee, and then, you just keep learning, whether it's from, your business coach or from even your clients of what works or what doesn't work, it definitely pivots. And then I started Spectrum Friendly Vacations, which, takes a little while to get some of the things launched too, because I want it to be correct. I want it to have all the information that people are going to need, make sure that it's launched correctly. They can actually pay for the course, all those fun things. But that one definitely took you a little while. And it's definitely pivoted through the process because when I started the business, I never even, I wasn't thinking about having spectrum friendly, training. It wasn't even on my mind. So
Can we
yeah,
talk a little bit about spectrum friendly vacations that you are in the process of launching right now and kind of the background story on that?
of course. Yeah. So spectrum friendly vacations kind of started as I would say the seed of it was technically planted several years ago. Even though I didn't go into the fruition of actual training. A friend of mine, I actually have several friends and family, neighbors, things like that with children on the spectrum. But a really good friend of mine, her name is Leanne. She has a daughter whose name is Trinity, but goes by Ninny. So I like to share Ninny's story. So my friends have a second home that they, so they go back and forth between their two homes, depending on what's going on in their life. And their second home is in more of a, tourist resort type of place where you can walk to the beach and, it's just a few blocks away. And they're definitely there more during the summer. So they were at their second home and they were having family movie night. And Trinity is on the autism spectrum. And what they didn't know at that time really ended up changing their lives after that night. So during family movie night, they didn't know that Ninny had slipped out of the house and she was only 4 years old. And Ninny's nonverbal, which means Ninny would not be able to tell you what her name is, her address, anything. All she could do was basically, like make gestures or almost just grunts or noises, but never be able to speak actual words. So she slipped out, and they don't actually know for sure how long she was gone before they realized it because they didn't realize until it was boot time, then after movie time. And it's time, and there's several children in the house, and it's time to brush teeth, get ready for bed. And all of a sudden it's like, where's Ninny? Where's Ninny? So after realizing, yeah, Ninny is not at the house, she's not in the yard, she's nowhere that they could find her. My friend Leanne called her husband because her husband was at their other house working still. So she called him and then she called the police. Her husband then called me, as Ninny's missing, can you come help her look? Can you come help and look for Ninny? So then my friend Leanne called the police, and fortunately a kind person in the community had seen Ninny. Ninny had decided it was time to go to the beach. So she was found at the beach that night. And so the cops picked her up, but they did not know for sure who she was, where she belonged. So they called the schools because they were thinking, maybe the school would have some information. But they homeschool. Plus, she was younger than school age anyway, but they also homeschool, and they're not always at the property. So fortunately, when she called the police and they were able to kind of like, okay, let's put this all together. Yes, this is, Ninny. And they had fortunately found her before anything, horrible had happened. But when I launched my vacation rental, my most recent one, it all kind of came full circle because a lot of us have the electronic keypad door locks, on our doors. We think it's quite safe, to keep people out who don't have permission. What we don't often think about, though, is the little knob locks, inside and how easy it is for children to turn those locks. And it came full circle for me when I had a family staying at my rental. And I get little pings, on my watch or my phone when the lock is locked or unlocked on that electronic keypad. And there was a family staying there, and it was like, to me, it was obvious, oh, a child is probably playing with the lock. Because it was lock, unlock, lock, unlock, lock. And I was like, all of a sudden, it just like dawned on me that this is not safe enough for children. And then I went a step further in thinking about autistic children and how they have a tendency to wander, it's called, or elope. So even, when people aren't on vacation, I have another client who has an autistic son who likes to just leave the house and let himself into the neighbor's house. This is true. And so they have a tendency to wander. And so I started to think about that situation with autistic children. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do something immediately about making not only mine, but other vacation rentals safe for autistic children. And I put together an outline and I sent it to my friend Leanne. And I knew I was doing the right thing when she responded and she was like crying. And the reason she was crying because their goal is to turn that second home into a vacation rental, but she didn't know how she was going to be able to explain all the additional things they've done to the house to make it safe for Ninny. And we call it Ninny proof. So I want to help people make their vacation rentals Ninny proof or spectrum friendly.
I love that so much, especially as a mother with young children. And like my 4-year-old, we have one of those locks on our door, which is amazing. And I really like it now, especially because it alerts me. Because there's mornings where I'm up, I go take the dog out for a walk, and I get an alert on my phone that it's open. I can check on the ring, and I see my 4-year-old has gone outside, is looking down the street for me to see if I'm nearby. Luckily, she goes back inside because my husband's still home, but he's just upstairs, still in bed.
He's
Like,
busy.
unaware of the fact that our child is searching for me and has let herself out. Which luckily she hasn't done in a long time at this point, but she was doing it for a while and it was horrifying. But I was like, I am glad that we have the ring and the lock to alert, because I would call him and be like, can you go check on Margaret? Because she's wandering. So it's the fear of, I also remember even during lockdown during COVID. One of my neighbors showed up at my doorstep and was like, hey, I found your daughter wandering around outside, because I had this little 2-year-old that I was like taking care of, and my older one had wandered off. Like, they do that.
And not just autistic children either.
It's like they wander.
Well, they don't realize the danger that they could be in, and especially when I think about, if the family's on vacation and it's a strange city, a strange neighborhood, maybe not even as safe as what it is at home. It's like there's too much that can happen, just too much. So
I love that you're creating that. I love that story. Thank you for sharing it with me and my listeners. I think
thank you. I know it was a little long-winded, but I have to tell the whole thing.
It's amazing. I love it. It's with purpose.
Thank you.
And I think those are the best business. The best business ideas sprout from solving one of those problems that has such an important purpose, keeping children safe, like right there.
Thank you.
Love it.
Thank you.
So with that, you mentioned that you're going to be doing a certification program. And so can we talk a little bit about how that's going to work if you have those details figured out?
Yeah. So the general idea is a vacation rental owner would take the training first. And then if they want their vacation rental to get certified, they would submit video, pictures, of what they have done to make the property safe. And then we would want to see it at least over video. There's too much spread out to actually go and visit in person. Not that I wouldn't love to visit a lot of these places in person, but yes. So they would then, there's a questionnaire that they would fill out and they would submit pictures and documentation of their rental so that we can do our best to make sure that they truly have implemented the safety features that we, recommend. And then we go another step further to also give owners ideas for ways they can also make the homes comfortable. So it's like they have to have the safety items in place to get certified. But if they truly want to, go one step further and be more than just friendly, there's things like weighted blankets or the cocoon hammocks, headphones, because it's hard to travel with a lot of those things, fidget toys. So a lot of those different things that we give them ideas for, too, of things that will make it not just safe, but also comfortable.
I love that so much.
Thanks.
What a great idea.
Thank you.
Well, I want to talk a little bit about the tech behind your business.
Okay.
Can we talk about what platform is your website currently on?
So that was created in Wix. So it was created by me originally, and I muddled along, with, I'd say, a half-ass, if I can use that word, website until I hired help to just make it better. It was okay, and I know it still has work to do. It's like it's more dynamic, it's more friendly, it's more colorful. There's, more things about it, but I know it's going to continue to evolve over time. So yeah. So usually how it works, like it's worked this way with Welcoming Wow. Also, I have a website for my vacation rental here in Florida and also a website for Spectrum Friendly. So it's like I create them and then I get help and then I hire help and I'm like, okay, so this is what I want to do. Can you do this? So that's what I use. That's how I've been doing it. I have control issues. No.
I think that's so great though, because I tell this to clients all the time when people are first starting out, like our businesses evolve so quickly. Like you even said, it evolves like practically every 2 months.
Yeah.
And it's at the beginning, I think it's so important to just like get it out there, just do it messy and just
Yeah.
get it done because it will evolve. And the beauty of a website and like your copy and your images, like it's not set in stone. You can change it at any time.
It's true. And it's like if I waited for perfection, I would never get anything done.
So good. Yeah, exactly.
So I used to tell my managers, because, you mentioned in my bio, I was in banking, I was an executive, I oversaw 17 locations, plus our training and marketing and consumer lending, small business lending, things like that. And I used to tell the branch managers who reported to me that if they weren't making mistakes, they weren't learning anything new. And I always try to keep that in mind. It's like, I'm not perfect. What I put out is not going to be perfect, but I hope that I'm at least helping people.
I love that so much. I think that's so important. It's something I'm definitely a recovering perfectionist. I struggle with my perfectionism every day and just try to like push through it because
Yeah.
that's the thing that I've found most, especially as I grow my online business, that if I wait for perfection, it will never get done. It just needs to be
Well,
good enough.
yeah, because it's hard sometimes because you're like, but people are going to see it. They're going to see it. They're going to judge me by what is out there. And it's like, it's okay.
Okay.
It's okay. They may like you better if it's messy,
Exactly. It makes
you
it more
know?
relatable. I have
Right.
a friend who was doing a training. She was in the process of like recording a training for a summit. I was like, hey, just a little tip that I've found as I am doing more and more visibility things. I'm like, don't edit out all the ums and re-record yourself every time you make a mistake. I'm like, for me, when I listen to someone and they have all that imperfection in there, it makes it more relatable.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just say just because now. So no. You're right. It's gonna be in there.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
I love that. What would you say were some of the fears and doubts that you had when you were first starting into going into your business?
I'm like, girl, I have fears and doubts still. I'm like, I still have doubts. I say some of the doubts, let's see if I can quantify. You have the doubts that, nobody's going to buy, what you're selling. Nobody's going to buy the course. Nobody's going to attend the workshop. And it's true. Sometimes they don't, and it's okay. It's still, there's still a lot of good in it, even though it goes back to the perfect, I think it always goes back to that for me. But I think that would be more of the doubts. It sometimes goes back to that self-confidence, like I know what I'm talking about, but sometimes there's that little voice in the back of your head, it's like, no, you need more of this, or you need more of this. It's like, no, I don't need more. I am enough.
I am enough. I
I
think
am
that's such
enough.
a great lesson there. I also think that it's so important to recognize that, like when we first put something out and offer out, it's not typically going to be an overnight success. We have to keep doing reiterations of it and keep telling people about it. Like you were saying, where one of the first things you do with clients is have them look at their analytics on the back end and see like how many people have actually viewed it. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, if there's only been 20 people that viewed it, there's not enough data there to really get a
Sure.
clear picture of what's going on. I know at least for websites and sales pages like and offers, we need at least a minimum of 100 views to try to start collecting the data.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, are there other people in the industry? You're the first one I've met who's in this industry, which doesn't mean anything really because I'm not in the vacation rental business.
Yeah.
But are there other people who are doing this type of one-on-one coaching and
Well, it's funny. That's a really funny question because before I started doing it, I didn't think anybody else was doing it. I thought this was brand new. Like I was the only one who came up with this. And then I started doing it. It's like, oh, there's that, there's another one. Oh yeah, there are actually quite a few. And there's books that people have written. So at first that was a struggle at first once I realized like, okay, yeah, this isn't new. This isn't, I'm not the only one doing this. But then it's like, okay, you know what? I can learn from them. And everyone has either their niche or the different people will relate to different people. Do you know what I mean? So it's okay if there's 50 vacation rental business coaches or Airbnb coach, however you want to call it, it's okay because we all are a little different and we all do things different and we're going to relate to people differently. So there are a lot of them though.
what would you say that you're doing different that's kind of being bold in the industry?
I'd say my boldness is the spectrum friendly vacations thing. To my knowledge, there isn't any other spectrum friendly training that's just focused on vacation rentals. There is other spectrum friendly or autism friendly training that's focused on hotels and resorts, more from the interaction perspective, but not addressing the vacation rental safety side of it. So that's where I would say that I am being bold and stepping out and being like, this is necessary. And we need places that, families with autistic children can actually vacation comfortably and be able to relax. Because if you think about how much work it is to parent children in general, how much more work it is when you have a special needs child or a child on the spectrum that they never get to relax or rest, And my friend Ninny's mom has shared with me about even when they stay in a hotel, someone usually sleeps in front of the door because you don't want Ninny deciding to go somewhere, And especially in the middle of the night, the staff in the hotels might not even be paying attention,
Yeah.
to the children wandering the halls and deciding to go out the front door. So it's just things like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I love that so much. I love that
Thank you.
you saw that opportunity of where there could be improvement and are doing something about it.
Yeah, it gives me a little anxiety thinking about the children. I'm like, and the parents.
What would you say? I'm such like a big fan of celebrating our wins and I do a lot of cheese plates to celebrate my wins. What is something you're really proud of yourself for that we could celebrate about you that you've accomplished in your business?
That's a good question. I don't think I sit and think about that very often. Hmm. Yeah, that's tough. I can't really even come up with something other than I know I need to celebrate wins more often. I think when I think about it, I'd say the first thing that would, I thought long and hard, is more about the success I've had with some of my clients. How they go from nothing, to getting their listing up and getting their first booking within, just a short amount of time. And instead of struggling through, I'm able to help them to navigate that. And the other thing is, when I purchased my last vacation rental here in Florida, um, closed on it June 16th, redid the kitchen, repainted interior and exterior. And I'm talking like I did the work because I'm one of those types of people, and then completely furnished, new carpet in the living room, all that. And it was listed by September 1st
Wow.
with, yeah. And then bookings coming in very shortly after that. And the other thing, that I would say I'm proud of, that I would celebrate, is so it was launched September 1st, was like when it first went out anywhere to be rented. And by December 1st, I was 100% booked from December to April.
Wow.
And then April was 75% booked. And most people aren't experiencing those types of results right now. So that's another thing that I would celebrate.
That's incredible. I love that.
Thank you.
That is
Thanks.
definitely worth celebrating. That's a huge,
It's my
like,
goal for
that's
all of my
big.
clients. It's my goal for everybody, though. It's like, we got to get those bookings. We got to get you some money.
Yeah. Oh, I
Because we're
love.
not, people, they may say differently, but you're not in the vacation rental business to break even. Or at least you shouldn't be. It shouldn't just be a hobby. It shouldn't just be considered, oh, this little thing I do on the side. And it's definitely not passive income. It takes work, it takes hustle, it takes some knowledge and making mistakes,
Mhm.
but if you can get that so that it's performing that well, then you can, get things automated, get those, repeat guests. That's the best part, then, because then you can kind of start to sit back and then go, okay, where's my next one going to be?
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
What would you say that is one piece of advice you would give someone when they're first starting out in their business to be bolder, be louder, and make waves?
One piece of advice. I'd say the biggest piece of advice is do your research. And then the second, because I have to have two, I can't just have one. The second is also to follow your gut. Your instincts are usually spot on. You can do all the research you want, but if it still doesn't feel right, don't do it. Or if it does, then go for it big time.
Oh, I think that's excellent advice. I love that so much. Is there anything that I didn't ask you today that you wish I had?
Um, Maybe just about how I find or where most of my clients would come from. So if you were to ask me, where do I find most of my clients? My answer would be, um, several of them I've been able to kind of make that, initial contact and kind of nurture them in Facebook groups that I'm in, where they may ask a question and I'm able to jump in and ask them some questions or give a little bit of advice and then jump on some phone calls. Um, and then the other is actually through social media, where people have found me, followed me for a while, then decided, like her content, her content's really good. Maybe I can, send her a DM and ask her a question. So I'd say my two ways that I find my clients are through Facebook groups and then just my general social media content.
Oh, I love that. And so, where do you show up mostly online?
Mostly online is Instagram. And it's funny because before I started this business, I was not an Instagram person. I was always on Facebook. But for some reason, it just felt like Instagram was where things were starting to move to. And not that that's necessarily true. So I was like, you know what? If Facebook is, becoming a little bit more dated, which I don't think has happened, I was just thinking, you know what? I'm gonna move over to Instagram now because why start, somewhere else? So I started an Instagram, and that's where I definitely show up more. Not that I don't post to Facebook, and I interact in a lot of Facebook groups, and that works well, but I show up more as far as my content in Instagram.
Love that. Well, Suzanne, we are just about out of time. I had so much fun connecting with
Thank
you
you.
and
Me
talking with
too.
you.
Me too. I appreciate you having me on.
Can you let our listeners know where should they come check you out? Is it Instagram, your website? Where can they come hang out with you?
They can come to all of the above. So they can find me on Instagram at a few different places, depending on what they're interested in. So Welcoming Wow is the coaching side of the business. Spectrum Friendly Vacations is the spectrum friendly certifications piece. Or you can just go right to Suzanne Hacker and you'll find a Linktree link that will lead you to everything. My website, the main one is welcomingwow.com or spectrumfriendlyvacations.com. So those are really the handles that I use generally.
Wonderful. I will link all that up in the show notes. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks, Laura.
Thanks so much for listening to this week's episode. Be sure to check out the show notes at lauracomark.com/podcast. And if you're ready to turn your website into a marketing machine, get more sales, save time, and simplify the back end of your business, grab my free resource, Power Integrations for your website. Head on over to lauracomark.com/power. If you enjoyed today's episode, make sure to subscribe. And also, I'll just love you forever if you leave me a review. It helps get this podcast in front of other people that can help inspire. Thanks so much for listening. I'll see you next week. Bye now.